What's up, guys? Welcome back to another week
It's
of.
week number 3, right?
Yes, it is
Week
week number
3.
3 of the mini fat loss series. This week is kind of special because we are going to do this week what we wanted to do
Is it fat loss week?
last week. It is fat loss initiation.
Let's go.
It is fat loss initiation. So this should be super straightforward,
hmm
right? Because your week was much more balanced, much more where it should be, like the healthy habits, things like that were taken care of. Food was much more consistent. Our averages, with a grain of salt, look great, but that's just because, right, I show you when we're looking at averages. My average calculator factors in like today,
hmm
which means it skews this down a little bit, right? So I think on average, if we say 2200, that's pretty damn consistent. So that's what we'll go off of.
Okay.
Now, what are your non-negotiables when it comes to creating a fat loss week? What are some things that you for sure definitely
Need to
need,
have.
need, need to have, right? I'm not
hmm
talking about want tos. I'm talking about need tos.
hmm Um, some things that I need. I know that Calvin and I talked about this. We are going to go out on like a date night, maybe once every other week. Not
Okay.
every week. But every other week, we're going to do an intentional date night. I am going to do the best that I can to track it and fit it in.
Hmm.
But like, I'm going to allow myself to be okay if I'm like slightly higher. Not
Yeah.
like trash panda mode. Like, if let's say that I'm like 100 to 200 calories over, perfectly fine.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
Another non negotiable is not completely cutting out like certain like food groups or my favorite foods or anything like that, especially with a background of not having a really great relationship
Hmm.
with food, is not going to facilitate a really, it's not going to facilitate the good habits that I've built over a period of time.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, what are some other non negotiables? I cannot eat gluten or dairy, otherwise, I look pregnant. It does not feel good either. So, those are also non negotiables.
Well, I feel like that's already covered. That's not a non-negotiable within the
Like the things,
fat loss phase, right? Because
yeah,
that's something that we've
it's a
already
standard.
established. Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, any extreme restriction or anything like that is probably not going to do well at
Oh,
all.
100%. And you'll see that that's not what we'll do.
Yeah. Oh, and one other thing, just to let you know a little bit about me, and I know what works best.
Hmm.
A couple things is one, I'm definitely one of those people where you give me a goal and I might push it a little bit above sometimes. So we might have to like, let's just start off with a regular one and see how I do, because it's been a hot minute since last time I've done a calorie deficit. So I don't know how I'll do that. The fudge factor. Yeah, that's what you call it. For those of you that are watching, if we do have somebody that tends to push the line, we tend to account for that and bring it just a little bit lower. So that way, and we normally don't really let the person know, because then they kind of take that, but we kind of factor that in. Um,
Yes.
and then I know for a fact that sometimes, especially if it's a little less of physical, a little more of mental
Hmm.
stress, or like if I feel like I'm being pushing myself a little bit more, like burnout. There you go. Maybe a diet break or even a higher day may help, like just subset it a little bit, just to know a little bit more about me. But besides that, I can't think of anything else off the top of my head that is a non-negotiable.
Beautiful. Now,
So,
you'll see. So we're going to put this in parentheses from now.
mhm.
Because if we do things right, we don't need them for the first half,
Mhm.
right? Now, let's transition over into how to calculate the deficit and then how to create it, right? Because the thing that's going to be our make it or break it kind of deal when it comes to shooting for results, what should we expect? are more maintaining the deficit, right? It's like creating it is super easy, like calculating it, putting it into place. Everything is easy in theory. And then when it comes to maintaining it, it's easy, but right? Because
Yeah.
your body's going to adapt,
Hmm.
right? So let's talk through some disclaimers before I share my whiteboard, because I always do. Um, I work best that way, and I feel like that some people are learn better when they're visual too, so it
Yeah.
helps them, with some things.
I'm definitely a picture book type person. So let me have
Absolutely.
it.
Absolutely. Right. So we've sorted out your food portions. We know the food types that you like,
Hmm.
right? We have a meal schedule that works for you. You have the ability to track food or count macros on a consistent base, and you have a pretty good understanding of how much you're eating. You know how much water to drink, what kind of supplements you take,
Hmm.
those kind of things, right? So that's our foundation, which means we can talk about creating a calorie deficit.
Hmm.
Now, for us, this is week 3,
Yeah.
right? But for everybody else listening, I want to put kind of like a fair disclaimer out here that for some people, the process that I just talked through can take months.
Yeah.
And that's okay, because getting used to that kind of approach is the most important thing to make it sustainable.
Hmm.
So take all the time that you need. Hence why we didn't push the fat loss last week. We were like, hey, we have the ability to push things off a little bit, because sustainability is what we're after, right? Nobody wants to be that story where when we're going to the next Christmas dinner, we're like, oh my God, you got in really good shape. And now look at you,
Yeah.
right? It's
Yeah. That's not, I've been that person. That's not fun to be.
right
One of my favorite analogies is, and this is what always gives me peace when I'm thinking about, oh, I have to create, I just want to go in a calorie deficit right now. No, I have to put the
hmm
foundation down first. It's like, just like you want to build your forever home, just like you want to keep this results for life. If you
for
take
sure.
a little bit of time, because in retrospect, like if you really think about it, maybe a month or a couple months is really not that long of a time in comparison for the rest of your life. But you
For
take a
sure.
little bit of time to create that solid foundation. That way, when you build up, it doesn't crumble. So you can stay within your forever home. So, and I'll be honest with you, if you look at my numbers, I dropped a couple of pounds during this time. I feel a lot better. I feel leaner. I feel like
hmm
I'm getting into the swing of things. I think that's also something important to remember, is just because you're not in a calorie deficit doesn't
For
mean that
sure.
you might not see really great results while you do it. So, but I'm ready. I'm weirdly ready.
I
Weirdly ready.
love that.
It's going to be the type 2 fun. Calorie deficits aren't always fun while you do it, but you're super proud of yourself after for doing the hard work.
Yes.
Type 2 fun.
So let's put things into practice. Oopsies. I
Yeah.
don't know why this. Let me make this big screen. So your two best friends are movement, strength training, or activity of any kind, but that's governed by how much time you have in a day,
Mm-hmm.
and obviously caloric reduction. I think next week or in 2 weeks we'll talk about things that we need to or that we can do once we run into issues, like difficulties that we will be facing. It's like
Mm-hmm.
a few common ones. We don't always face all of them, but one or two for sure, right? But for now, let's create your calorie deficit. Now,
Woo.
this right now seems like a super rudimentary calculation.
Mm-hmm.
I promise, for anybody listening, this works every single time. If you understand these 4 steps with the foundation that we just talked about, this will work.
Mm-hmm.
I've yet to see it not work
If the person's
when
compliant.
correct, when we're applying it appropriately, and we are physiologically in a place where our body is accepting, right? So we're not like dealing with some sort of like hypothyroidism or something,
Yes.
right? Now, first thing we need is your current body weight, which we have,
Mm-hmm.
right? Second thing is our weight loss goal per week, which is usually between 0.5% and 1%. But again, we are accounting for the fudge factor. So we will say 0.5%, right? That's step 2. Now, what we can do is we can multiply how much we're weighing right now by how much we want to lose per week. And this is roughly 0.8 pounds, right? That's per week. That's optimal. And people are like, oh my God, that's so little. It should be.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, it's not sustainable. It can be more, but I'm going to tell you right now, if your body is hyper responsive and you'll drop more than 1.6 pound per week, we're going to like pull the brakes. That's when we're
Yeah.
putting in diet breaks and those kind of things.
Yeah. And like just knowing if I lose weight really fast, I'm going to lose a lot of muscle mass.
Yep.
And my goal is to get leaner, not get smaller. So if I need to take
Correct.
a slower approach to make sure I maintain muscle mass while I do that to improve my body composition, I'm totally okay with that. Plus, that also allows me to live my life a little bit more and have little snackies here and
Absolutely.
there. So
100%.
100% worth it. So.
Now, why do we calculate our goal pounds per week by 500? Because we have 7 days in a week. 3,500 calories is 1 pound.
Mm-hmm.
So 1 pound or 3,500 calories divided by 7 will give us 500. So if we wanted to lose 1 pound per week, our daily deficit would have to be 500 calories. But we don't want to lose 1 pound per. I mean, you may want to, right? But I don't want you to. We want to lose about 0.8 per week, which means this should be a 400 calorie deficit,
Okay.
right? So if we're taking all of that from food, we're looking at about 1,800 calories,
That's what
right?
I was
Which is,
estimating it would be.
yeah, which that is for a lot of people. They're like, oh my God, that's a diet. That's like close to my maintenance. That's how it should be,
Mm-hmm.
right? Dieting should not be super aggressive.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in theory, what we could do is we could move 200 calories more, but I know you're already super active, so I don't want to put like 200 calories to get from steps is probably, if I had to estimate, it's about 45 minutes worth of walking
Yeah.
at an incline, and that's quite a lot of time,
Mm-hmm.
right? So
Yeah, I would rather that be maybe something to pull out of our back pocket at
if
the
we
very
have
end if
to,
we have to. Yeah, but
correct.
I'd rather not do it now.
Absolutely. Like we're sprinkling in movement for like if you were not active at all, different story,
Mm-hmm.
right? We can just move more and now we don't have to decrease calories at all.
Yep.
But you are already super active, so I would rather not have you move like your day's worth is moving, right? You don't get
Yeah.
any time to chill, you don't get any time for yourself and to decompress.
Yeah,
That's not
taking it from the calories just makes more sense. Like 1,800 is
yes.
doable. I'll be a little bit hungry, but that's doable. But adding another 45 minutes to my day of movement from what I already do, not gonna be too happy about that. It's gonna be a little bit of a stretch. So
Yes. So what we'll do is we will take 160 grams of protein. You'll see those numbers come out here in a little bit. We will take about zero point 0.3 grams per pound of body weight. That's going to be your fat. We cannot go lower than that. I mean, we could if you were to get hormones out of a vial, but you don't,
no.
right? So we can't push this much lower without compromising hormonal marker adaptation, right? Which is roughly, this will be roughly 50 grams,
Mm-hmm.
and the rest will now come from carbohydrates, right? Does that make sense so far? How we like got to those numbers,
Yep.
right?
160.
So now, if this was an Excel format and we were to change the body weight, everything else would just automatically change with,
Mm-hmm.
right? So that's the neat part about this, right? So if we have to, like we're getting to the point where your body adapts because your body will adapt, we will simply rerun this 4-step calculation,
Mm-hmm.
figure out is it reasonable to increase the deficit by whatever that number is. It'll always be less because, well, if I'm weighing less, I have less to lose. And if I have less to lose, my deficit needs to be less,
Yeah.
you know? So that's a super convenient thing, right? But this is as scientific as we're going to get with this,
Yep.
right? So when we're now bringing this back over into our trusty app, we now have the ability to set these goals, right? So the cool thing here is that we're already taking a lot of calories from fat, right? So that was like already like close to like 150, 200. Protein, we don't have to adjust at all, which means our serving sizes just stay the same, which is super convenient. We will just slightly pull back on carbs a little bit. There we go.
Alrighty. Cool.
Right? Now, this does not include fiber. This is net carbohydrates. The biggest difference there between the two is because fiber isn't broken down into glycogen, which means it doesn't contribute to your overall net calorie balance. This would include alcohol. So if you're drinking, alcohol is kind of like our fourth macro that in a fat loss, in maintenance, we're kind of like lax about it because we have the ability to. But in a fat loss phase, we need to. Alcohol is about 7 calories per gram.
Yeah.
And
I don't
it's
imagine I'm going to be drinking too often.
no, it's just a sugar, right? Alcohol sugars.
Yeah.
So that's something that we do want to like pay some attention to if we drink. The cool thing about it is that most cans, most bottles like are now in almost all nutrition trackers,
Yeah.
right?
You just have to be careful with that for those of you who are listening. So technically, not really. Alcohol is considered a macro. Protein is 4 calories per gram. Carbs is 4 as well. Fats is 9 calories per gram, and alcohol is 7. And so if you're going to be tracking alcohol, if you just look at the nutrition facts and say it's only 4 grams of carbs or it has 0 grams of carbs, well, that still doesn't account for the alcohol. So you have to go in and
Correct.
and calculate that, and whether you want to take the total amount of calories and track it as a carb or a fat or both. That's how you track alcohol. It's still very important to make sure that you're doing that correctly. It's a really great way to sabotage your success if you don't know how to track that accurately.
Yes.
But I don't imagine I'm going to be drinking too often.
No.
Typically, I don't drink. I don't completely eliminate it, but I don't drink too often because I get the snackies when I drink. It's very easy for me to overeat. If I do have one, I think I might have a limit of like 2 max within the night, just setting those boundaries. There's a cost to getting lean. So there's got to be some type of give and take. If I want something, I got to be able to give something. So
yes. So maintaining the deficit will be now the only thing we have to reason through, right? It's because your body might adapt, right? It will adapt. We just don't know how quickly, right? That's all based on how flexible your physiology is. We're not going to freak out if nothing changes in 1 week. If you go 2 weeks without losing if we lose less than 0.8 for 2 weeks in a row, now we will reconvene, right? We will either from both.
If I'm consistent at being in a calorie deficit.
Correct. Like if all the variables are accounted for, right? I've worked with a lady and she said it's like, hey, like her macros were perfect, but she kept gaining weight. And I was like, okay, like, let's be honest, your heart to heart. And she said, yeah, I track. And the second I hit my calories, I just stop tracking, but I keep eating. I was like, that's cheating. That doesn't
but
work.
It doesn't count, Toby, if they don't track it.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I think everybody's been a little bit guilty of that in one way or another. But yeah, it's a good reminder that those things do matter. They do count up.
For sure, right? So let's see how the first week goes. This is a big nutritional adjustment, right? So that's the only new actionable step we'll put in place, because if this doesn't work, there's other things that we can look at, right? And that's then when we're going to talk to or through dealing with difficulties. But you have the formula to lose weight effectively now,
Mm-hmm.
right? And safely over the next 6 to 12 weeks, which is still, it's going to be an impressive pace,
Mm-hmm.
right? So check your unrealistic expectations if you had any, right?
Never.
I
I don't
know,
ever.
I know.
And in terms of the switch in calories, I was hoping that this was going to happen. So I already went into Chronometer. I guesstimated what you're going to give me anyways, because
Mm-hmm.
this is the exact same thing that I do with clients too. So I guesstimated about this amount and
Mm-hmm.
already pre-tracked it within Chronometer, already adjusted my grocery shopping list accordingly. So some things that I'm going to be doing to help make sure that I stay satiated while being in a calorie deficit, and just switching things up to support hitting certain
Yeah.
nutrition
And
goals.
again, it's like if we're finding that like hunger is the thing that's like keeping us
Mm-hmm.
from being super consistent, I have tons of tips and tricks to kind of like reason us through
Yeah,
that, right? So the
100%.
biggest thing now is, and this is going to be an actionable step, is standardize your movement. Now that you're
Mm-hmm.
eating less, your body will want you to move less.
Yeah.
It's just one of those sneaky ways that evolution will win.
Mm-hmm.
So even if you feel like, ugh, I don't want it today, I just want to lay in bed.
Yeah.
It's move, right?
Yeah.
Energy comes from energy, so you will feel better,
Yeah.
right? So
100%.
do the things, you have the healthy habits in place, right? So we're keeping everything as smooth sailing as it was, pulling back the food, and that's what initiates our deficit. Fair?
Sounds good. Yeah. Sounds really
Sick.
good. So,
Sick. Actionable steps for the week set, right? Consistency within lifestyle habits,
mm-hmm.
consistency within actionable habits, new trackable goals.
Yep. Boom. Simple. Should be as simple as that.
It should be, because the hard work was already put in,
Yep.
right? It's, we're taking our time, we're being so diligent and harping on those little things so that this transition is easy.
Yeah.
Because
And I feel
this
great while
is
doing it.
100%,
Yeah, I
because this is
shouldn't.
what a lot of people associate with a lot of hard work, and that's gonna suck. And
Mm-hmm.
it's, if we're doing it this way, does it take a little bit longer?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Do we get to keep the results longer? Also, yes.
Yep. So, looks like we got a game plan.
Hell yeah.
For those of you that are watching, if you're wondering, want to just see like what I'm going to be eating, my grocery haul, what I'm going to be doing in terms of like food to make sure I stay satiated during a calorie deficit, and so much more, go ahead in the show notes. I'll share my Instagram and my TikTok. You can follow either one. I'll be sharing stuff there all the time just to show you the journey, maybe give you some tips and tricks that you can use on yours as well.
Sick. And if you
So,
have any questions, reach out, leave a comment, do those kind of things. Let us interact with you.
yeah, 100%. Oh, and also, if you haven't signed up for the Strong Body, Strong Mind Challenge, we can give you your own personalized nutrition goals too, and help guide you through this process if your goal is fat loss. If it's not, muscle building, very similar calculation, just in the other way that we
Correct.
use, and so much more. We'd love to have you, and it's for a really great cause. It's only $28 for 28 days. I'm going to give you a bunch of really cool fitness programs and workouts to do it while you do it. So it's going to be a
Yes.
lot of fun. We'll put that in the show notes below if you want to register. We'll see you there. So,
Absolutely.
all right, Tobi, wish me luck.
All right. You don't need luck. You need success.
Wish me success.
There you go.
All right. Bye, guys. See you next week.